Hi, this is Steve Gornson with Action Coach Business Coaching. Welcome to the Jacksonville Spotlight. Today, my special guest is Ed Henshaw with Venture Management and Marketing. Ed, welcome.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for having me today.
Hey, very good. I appreciate you coming and joining us today. So why don't we just get started? Why don't you just take a moment, introduce yourself and your company and what you guys do?
Sure. Thanks, Steve. Again, my name is Ed Henshaw. I'm with Venture Management and Marketing. Company's been in business for over 20 years now.
Wow.
In short, we help businesses grow and succeed. We focus on small to mid-sized businesses, providing marketing strategies and solutions for them and helping them learn how to put their own strategies in place, whether it's simply putting together a strategy all the way up to a full-fledged media campaign. We can customize pretty much most anything for most anybody.
So who would you say your best customers are?
Well, we want to be able to help everybody, but what we found has worked really well for us in the past, and our most successful clients a lot of times are, it's a combination, professional and smart business owners that understand the importance of having a plan in place for whatever they're doing. You need to have a plan in place for your business for all types of aspects, in particular, your marketing efforts. How are you going to grow? What are you going to do today that's going to affect what's happening tomorrow? Realize that you want to be able to evaluate that, understand what your expectations are, measure it, determine the success of it, and make the necessary adjustments. So we've seen success with doctors, attorneys, contractors, and various other types of businesses that understand that if you don't have a plan to grow, it's going to be challenging to get there. You might find yourself in the same situation a year or two down the road as you are in today.
So let's talk about a little bit about your business and then maybe share some things that you did with clients during this atmosphere that we're in right now, sort of the new normal with COVID. How has that affected your business?
Well, there's been a couple of things. The initial impact was right when everything occurred. We're marketing and advertising industry, and when businesses were shut down and everything kind of started all at once, or should I say stopped all at once, a lot of people turned to us and they were very scared. It was, okay, let's put the brakes on everything. Let's stop. Let's hit the pause button. We've got to, figure out what's going on. And they were scared. They were scared and they were concerned. Rarely is inaction the solution to a problem, but we understood. So the first thing that, we had to realize was to simply listen. That a lot of people just needed to vent, to express, their concerns and their anxiety about what was going to happen in the future. They didn't even want an answer at that point in time, Steve. They just needed to voice what they were thinking and kind of think out loud. And so I think that was the first thing. After that kind of eased a little bit and we looked back and talked with our clients, the next thing was realizing how we could best provide value. Now, one of the things that we focus on and we were very good at doing is helping clients identify existing or developing new, what we call differentiators, unique selling propositions, so to say. What makes you different from from your competitors? And if nothing else, the shock that has been COVID and what it has done to the economy has made most business owners realize that if nothing else, we need to take a look at how we're approaching our business because things have changed.
Especially because the customer changed. They might have the same needs as they did before, but as we were talking about earlier, but their compelling need might have changed. So how we marketed to them might not change, but our messages had to change because people didn't want to be sold to during this time. They were looking for help. They were looking for answers.
Without a doubt. And what worked yesterday may no longer work today nor tomorrow. There are, real things you want to consider. Obviously, when there was quarantine and isolation going on, you had less people on the roads. So outdoor media may not have been as much of an interest to a lot of people. The impact wouldn't necessarily be the same, but you had much more people consuming much more media during that time, whether it was TV or streaming or digital, whatever it may have been. And then you want to look back at what your offer is. And does your, product that you were offering in January, does it have the same value or is the same demand there today? For many people, there wasn't. If your entire approach, was going to change. You had to learn how to do takeout and delivery and change your approach there. Again, once you figure out what you can do, how do you differentiate yourself? But this is an event that isn't, it's not a part-time event. This has changed the way that people think. The consumer psychology and the psyche of the populace as a whole has shifted. And it's important that business owners realize that and think about why people want what benefit they receive from their products and services and how best to convey that information in the current environment.
Right. Yeah. Is how can their product and services help them now? Still has the same benefit, but it might mean something different to the client right now.
What you're saying, how you're saying it, and how it's being heard. Sometimes messages are developed and the person who's saying it or the company who's advertising it, because they're thinking of something from a particular perspective, they see and hear exactly what they hope. But because they have mistakenly not thought about it from the consumer's perspective, especially if that perspective has recently changed for substantial reasons, that message may come across entirely wrong. An example that's often used is in texting and email. Sometimes the tone of a message can be wrong. Something could be said in jest and it's taken entirely wrong. The same thing goes if you haven't rethought. Just revisit what you're saying, how you're saying it, and make sure that you're taking into account the new environment and new sensitivities and things that are in place that didn't necessarily exist, certainly not to the degree they currently do 6, 7, 8 months ago. It's easy to get so buried in the day-to-day. And when we see the same challenges and we deal with the same things day to day, and we get into that habit, whatever our daily habits are of, doing what we do throughout the day, that trying to look at it with fresh eyes can be a challenge. It can be rough. And so it's important to be able to turn to somebody, look at things with, a fresh point of view, and also has a decent reference frame that can say, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Man, sometimes it's really hard to open the blinds from the inside.
I know that you said that you had a few of your clients that are actually having they're doing really well during this time. Has there been any pivots that you've helped them make that has really helped turn their business during this time?
Well, I think one of the big things to point out is that we had one particular client was providing services for an industry that was frankly out and out shut down. They thought they may very well be looking at closure, but by simply taking and looking at what was already in place and making a few tweaks to products and services they were able to respond to what is effectively a new demand based on the current, marketplace. Most companies can do that. We get so settled into the fact that, this widget fixes this particular problem. Well, if you put those pieces together in a different form, you can solve a lot more. Or that exact widget you never thought that it could solve. And it's just a matter of reminding people or highlighting the fact that there may be new problems or challenges that will come along. And these are all things that people maybe didn't think about before this particular situation.
We get the blinders around, which is good when you're in the business and you're trying to get stuff done. But when you're trying to pivot, you need to, that's why, with my clients, I make them stop every 90 days to pivot, to really look at where they're at and what pivots do we need to make over the next 90 days. So they're still heading to their goals. So what's the thing that's inspiring you the most these days?
That's a great question. And I would say that there are 3 things that really kind of jump out at me when you ask that type of a question. I would say, first of all, is creativity. The second of all is, ingenuity. The third, and probably the most impressive, is perseverance. Yep. Seeing people be creative and coming up with, ingenious ideas of how to address the situation at hand. And just the fight, the perseverance of, I don't care what happens. It's not about how many times you get knocked down. It's how many times you get back up. I'd say that, talking to business owners that have gone through all these things and they found a way to not just survive, but to thrive. They sat down, they put their heads down, and they worked out a solution. They didn't let things happen to them. They took what was thrown at them. But what they took what was thrown at them and they turned it into something that they could make a positive out of. And just seeing the creativity, the ingenuity, and the perseverance, I get impressed every single day with a new story.
So Ed, I want to thank you very much for joining us here today on the Jacksonville Business Spotlight.
Steve, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.